What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big pieces of news that just came out for Tesla and why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have FOMC and a very important speech from Jerome Powell. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right over here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. If you deposit $10,000, you're going to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. Or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus a $100 cash reward. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon in just 2 weeks. So please use my links down below to sign up to get those free Nvidia shares. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So as far as Tesla is going, as you guys can tell, we're looking quite decent right now. Tesla has resistance at 425 and our supports at 402. Looking at Tesla, we're trying to test this resistance. I do think we push a little bit higher. And then we're going to be watching to see if Tesla could break out for that 435 to 440 area, or if we turn right back down depending on FOMC. But I do anticipate some upside and consolidation on Tesla to start things off for tomorrow. And then FOMC is going to either launch this to the skies or take us right back down depending on the big guy. Now, there's lots of news that's coming out. As you guys know, Elon Musk recently purchased more than 2.5 million shares worth over $1 billion, which is what's helping Tesla build a lot of bullish momentum. It's still holding up quite nicely as a result. But keep in mind, although it's great that Tesla's pushing like this, you also want to be very careful because you never know what's going to happen, especially since we also happen to have FOMC. And if the whole market does turn south, it could drag Tesla down with it. And that's why you want to be very, very careful, very, very unbiased with the way in which we go about things. There's some news coming out that the NHTSA is looking into reports that faulty electric door handles on the 2021 Tesla Model Y SUVs have stopped some owners from being able to enter the vehicles or even help their children come out. And with this investigation that's going on, we're going to see if this leads to a recall or not. And simultaneously, Tesla's recalling the Powerwall 2 batteries over the risk of fires. So there was some negative news that came out as well, but this is specifically happening in Australia, by the way, not like in the entire world, just Australia. So with all of this going on, there was some negative news, but their sales in Europe are just like decent, a little bit lackluster, but there is a lot of optimism about the American sales because once again, we're approaching the end of the EV tax credit, and hopefully that helps Tesla's sales improve for the month of September to finish off this quarter very strong. So that's what we're hoping for. We're going to see if that ends up being the case for Tesla or not. So for now, that's what's making up the majority of news. Now, right now, Wedbush have said just 2 days ago that Tesla's going to likely outperform the market as they have very bullish targets again. The price-price ratio is climbing as Tesla's building some strength. And when it comes to seasonality, keep in mind that we tend to see more volatility, especially on Wednesdays, about 48% of the time. And at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we also tend to see more volatility. So keep that in mind. So that's some important news. Now, moving forward, we just have minor earnings, nothing way too serious for now. So just keep that in mind as well. And without further ado, let's talk about FOMC. So for Tesla, if you want to be bullish, by the way, you want to see us hold above 425. If that holds, we could be looking for 435 to 440 and eventually start pushing even higher if we get a break above that 425 zone. That's the main level for us to break out from. If we're bearish, you want to see Tesla dip to 402. If that fails us, we could be dipping to 394. So be very, very patient, at least nonetheless, and we'll see what ends up happening as time goes on. But for now, I do think Tesla tries to push a little bit higher, like I said before, for 425, and then we might consolidate. And then it's all going to depend on FOMC and what Jerome Powell says. So that's why I want to talk about that first, and I'll break down Tesla stock. So for CPI data, and this is the first thing to really remember because the Fed has what's known as a dual mandate. All items CPI did go up in the month of August. It actually went up quite a bit. Although this was aligned with what we were expecting, it did increase. And then all items without food and energy also stayed flat, stuck in the middle. So we're going to see what that leads to moving forward. Will this affect Jerome Powell's tonality or not? On top of this, keep in mind that tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, September 17th. At 8:30 a.m., we have building permits data coming out. And then we also happen to have some important data involving FOMC, at least afterwards. So minor data in the morning, but tomorrow at 2 p.m., we have the interest rate decision coming out. When we approach that, typically the market's kind of like choppy, trades sideways, and then when the decision comes out, expect some volatility. The market is expecting a 25 basis point cut, putting the target rate at 4.25%. And then we also get the FOMC economic projections, which is very important. It's going to give us insights about what the Fed is projecting 1, 2, 3 years out. And for the longer term, are we going to see the Fed cut more? Will the market see something different? It all depends on these different factors. So for now, we're kind of stuck in the middle. We're going to see what happens at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Expect some volatility. Right now, sentiment is not the strongest, and we're going to see if the Fed does expect more cuts than previously anticipated or not. So keep that in mind. And then on top of this, at 2:30 p.m., so that's 30 minutes after the decision comes out, we have the press conference. At 2:30, Jerome Powell starts giving his speech, and that could also be very impactful. There's a 96.1% chance at the time I'm recording this, we're going to get a 25 basis point cut, and a 3.9% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. So be ready for that. That's going to be very important for us moving forward, especially as time goes on. So we're most likely going to get a 25 basis point cut. And our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, came out and he is saying that a 25 basis point cut is already priced in, and the market's now pricing in a 75 basis points worth of cuts between now and the end of the year. So he's saying the main question is whether the Fed is going to aim for a more neutral or a different stance. In my opinion, I agree with him. He did bring up a good point about that. Jerome Powell's tonality is also going to be very important, meaning that it makes it a little bit difficult to predict because let's say we get a 25 basis point cut, which is a bit more bearish because that's like mostly priced in. If that happens, if we get a 25 basis point cut, that factor could cause us to dip. But there's another factor. There's two big factors. Number one, this factor. Number two is Jerome Powell. What if we get a 25 basis point cut, but then Jerome Powell is super dovish? He starts pumping the markets. The market could still rally even if we get a 25 basis point cut. If we get a 25 basis point cut and then Jerome Powell is very ambiguous, he's all uncertain, he says the same things about how he doesn't know what's going to happen, we have to be very patient and blah, 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 then yes, the market could still turn back down. So that's why you want to be very prepared for anything. You want to be very, very unbiased, and we'll see what ends up happening as time goes on. So that's why I do want to stress the importance of being unbiased and to watch and see what happens with the big guy and his speech. Now, President Trump is now speaking a lot about this. He basically said that the U.S. could be slapping higher tariffs on semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, higher than the 25% duty on automotives, at least so far. He also talked about how they have negotiated a compromise with Europe, South Korea, and Japan for 15% tariffs on American automakers. And then he also talked about how they pay nothing. Now they are paying 15%, and some things can pay more, like chips could pay more, pharmaceuticals could pay more. There is a bigger margin. That's what President Trump has said. He also talks about how there was a possibility of a 100% tariff on semiconductors. And then when it comes to pharmaceuticals, they'll put a small tariff on them, then eventually increase them to 150%, then 250%. He's using Section 232 under the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 to give him the power to do this. So that's some important news. So what's going to happen to President Trump? He made it very clear he wants to see more production in America. He wants to see America start to build products and semiconductors, and he wants Americans to learn from the expertise of other countries on how to do this. He's also threatening more tariffs, and if he does start imposing these tariffs on semiconductors, this could have a very profound effect on Nvidia, Tesla, and all these different companies. So we'll see if anything happens or not. Just keep all of this in mind. President Trump has been talking about this. On top of this, President Trump said that too late, Powell must cut interest rates now and bigger than he had in mind. Housing will soar. So once again, he's saying the same thing as before. So what do we see for Tesla? Like I said before, the range is between 400 and 425. I know it's a big range because Tesla's so volatile. Big ranges like that are not out of the ordinary. If Tesla loses 402 tomorrow, we do expect it to start dipping towards like 385 or so. If we're bullish and break past 425, though, we could be looking for an attempt for 435 to 440. In my opinion, I think that Tesla tomorrow is going to be pushing for 425, and then we're going to likely see some consolidation like this. We might even go a little higher. And then what's going to happen is Jerome Powell is going to be the next big factor affecting Tesla. I think we see a lot of sideways price action tomorrow, and then Jerome Powell is going to either launch this for the 440s, or Tesla could form a double top and start dipping if Jerome Powell causes a big rug pull, which is why you want to be prepared for anything just to be safe. I do want to give you guys a warning, though, because when you look at SPY and the QQQ, SPY has a 4-hour rising wedge, a very clear rising wedge here, and we're starting to show some signs of reversal. We might pop a bit in the morning as well and then consolidate around the 660s. And then Jerome Powell either launches this to new highs if he's very dovish, and if we get a 50 basis point cut or something else like that happens, or if we get a 25 basis point cut and Jerome Powell does not launch us, he causes us to dip, we could be looking for a big dump. If we break 662, by the way, that's bullish. We're looking for new all-time highs. But if we lose 658, we're looking for a dump back down to 655. There is a rising wedge and a triple bearish divergence on SPY, so the odds do favor that downside move as a bit more probable. But I don't know for sure what's going to happen because it depends on Jerome Powell. And the best thing to do is to be very unbiased when it comes to our analysis. The QQQ, if we're bullish, you want to see us basically break past 594 to really break out for 600. If 594 breaks and holds, we could be going for 600. But if we turn back down and if we can't hold 590 flat, if we kind of pop a bit then start dipping below 590, we could be dipping back down to 587. There's also a rising wedge on the triple Q, which could be giving us some bearish confluence. So we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. So as far as Tesla's going, as you guys could tell, we have 425 as our resistance, and that could once again lead to some downside, especially as time goes on. So be very, very careful, at least for now. And we're going to see what happens, at least moving forward. Tesla could push for 425 and we'll see what happens. But then this might make a big move depending on the markets. If we consolidate like this and if the market launches higher with Powell, of course, Tesla could push more. But if the bearish rising wedges on SPY and the QQQ start to pan out and the market starts to get a rug pull, then there's a risk that Tesla could once again return to the 390s and look for some kind of corrective move. On the daily time frame, although Tesla's holding up nicely, keep in mind there's a lot of gaps on Tesla. There's a small one over here at 396. There's more gaps over here in the 360s. There's even one all the way down here in the 330s. So will Tesla come back down to fill some of these gaps? Will we see a temporary pullback before it tries to break out higher? It would be very nice if Tesla comes back down to like the 360s and 350s for a buying opportunity before we continue to squeeze for 500. That would be very nice, but of course it could be wishful thinking. It all depends on Jerome Powell and the Fed. So could we test 425 tomorrow? Yes, we could push and consolidate, but then we'll see what happens after that. For SPY, we're obviously on a bit of an uptrend, but you want to be very, very careful. There are a lot of gaps to fill below. And if this is about to shift directions, that could also be a sign. Keep in mind, there is that rising wedge-like pattern that could lead to downside. Same thing with the QQQ. We have a rising wedge, and there's a lot of gaps below. So is Jerome Powell about to cause a rug pull? We'll see, just to be safe. On the IWM Russell 2000, the 4-hour time frame has resistance around this 240 area and support down here at 236. If that fails us, we're going to be turning back down. It could go either way. We're going to see if 240 breaks or not. If we hold that, we could push more. If not, there is a gap to fill back down towards like the 220s, and we could be looking for a big rug pull if we lose 235. So we'll see, just to be safe. So just keep that in mind. This is going to be very key for how we end up moving. So of course, the overall market also affects Tesla. Although we could test 425 tomorrow and consolidate, we'll see if we get some kind of rug pull or not. Let's just double check this ES. I'd be very, very careful with this. Can we break and hold above 6,700 to remain bullish and continue to push? Or do we make a lower high and retest 6,650 to start tipping back down to 6,625? We'll wait and see what ends up happening. So be very, very patient. And we will have to just wait and see what ends up happening with our moves, at least moving forward. Now, it's also possible that this is like a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. And if we can't break 6,700, this could turn back down for the lower 6,600s. It's a possibility, but not a guarantee. We'll see about that depending on Jerome Powell. For NQ, if we break and hold above 24,650, we're going higher. But if we make a lower high, we could be turning back down to 24,400 or below. So be very, very careful. Bitcoin on the 4 hours looking bullish. It's going to be favoring 117,000. If we break higher, we're going to be looking for essentially 117,000. We'll see if it rejects or not. If not, we could be turning back down. So look for some temporary upside. If not, we could turn back down if we lose 115,500. Tesla's once again holding up nicely, looking for basically 425 as our resistance. So be very, very careful, at least nonetheless. Watch 425 and we'll see if we break past it or not. I think we push for it, then we consolidate, and we'll see if we turn from there. So be very careful. Nvidia is showing some weakness, technically speaking. As you could tell, it's making lower highs. We need to get back above 178 to be bullish. If we can't, there's going to be a risk of us returning to 170 because there's also this giant gap to fill. back down towards that 170 area. Are we about to see semiconductors dip because of Jerome Powell or also because of President Trump's tariffs? That could also have a profound effect. Aapl has a gap to fill at 234, but nothing is guaranteed. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, we have resistance at 240 and support down here at 235. Watch 235, and we're going to see if we break or not. I need to see Aapl hold above 240. If it can't, we're favoring consolidation and a move back down to 233. So please be very careful with Aapl. It did try to push only to get a rejection. So far, we closed very flat, which is not really ideal. For Netflix, we need to get back above 1214. If we can't hold above that, there's going to be a risk of us returning back down towards 1180. Can we bounce off that and then form an inverse head and shoulders? We'll see about that. But if the market sees a downtrend, of course, this could continue to fall to 1150 or below. For other tickers, we also have MSTR. MSTR has also been trying to push higher. As you could tell, we're above 334 right now, which is a good sign. As long as that holds, we're going to be favoring 340, so there is upside potential. Celsius is on a bit of a downtrend. We could be dipping back down to basically the 54 area. We're going to see if we hold above that or not, but I do see some downside risk of 53.3 to 54 for a temporary downside move. For Supermicro, just like Nvidia, it's showing some weakness. Unless we hold above 45.4, we're going to be favoring consolidation and a dip back down to 43.75. Palantir is going to be favoring essentially 167.5, and we'll see if we bounce. For now, there's some downside risk to 167.5, and we'll see if buyers defend. Rivian is going to be favoring 14.63 as our resistance, and we'll see if we bounce or not. Might be going a little bit higher for 14.6, so look for some upside. SoFi is going to try to bounce, but the problem is, can we take out 28s to be bullish, or do we come short and start dipping back down to 26.75? Could turn. The interest rates really affect banks and stocks like SoFi, so you want to be very careful nonetheless. AMD, it's in the middle. There's an inverse head and shoulders like pen, but I need to see it hold above 164 to continue this breakout. But if we lose 157 returning back down, I'm favoring 162 and then some consolidation like this. Then we other breakouts for 164 turn back down, so you want to be very careful. ARM is making lower highs with an inverse cup and handle, so it could be dipping to 151 if that fails us. We're looking for 146. PayPal is making lower highs here. Unless we hold above 67, we're going to be favoring a move back down to 65. Coinbase has resistance right here around this 330 area and support at 322. So I expect this to consolidate, but 322 is going to likely be retested. Amazon might be retesting 232, and we'll see if we bounce. Look for some temporary downside before some buyers try to defend. Meta is looking a bit more bullish. We have 780's resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for 780. So it's still holding up very nicely. Might try to go for 780. There might be some temporary upside. And the 780s, then we'll see if it turns or not. Google's in the middle. If we lose 250, we're bearish. We're looking for 245. But if we break past 254, we're turning back up. Might pop in the morning, but we need to break 254. If we don't, 250 could be retested, and we could actually turn back down. Microsoft has support at 508. We pushed and then dipped. 510 is kind of tough to break. We might retest 510.5, then eventually 514. Then we'll see if it turns. There might be a small bounce, but if we make a lower high, we could still turn back down. So you want to be very careful nonetheless. DJT is consolidating, could be retesting the low 17s. The VIX is trying to break out of this bullish falling wedge, which could be favoring the 17s very soon. The 10-year is also on a bit of a downtrend right now, so this could be favoring a gap fill or below. That's a sign that the Fed is going to be more dovish, give us some kind of cut, which is already priced in. But then Jerome Powell also could, change his tonality. That's not, something we could guarantee right now. We have to wait and see. The dollar is down, so is crude. So we're going to see what all of this leads to. So in essence, the market could go either way. There might be a small pop tomorrow in consolidation in the morning, but then whatever the big guy Jerome Powell says is going to greatly affect us. If the Fed gives us a 50 basis point cut, that's bullish, even though there's a 4% chance of that happening. There's a 96% chance we get a 25 basis point cut, which is bearish, but that's just one bearish factor. The second factor is going to be Jerome Powell. He could still launch us or dump us. I don't know what's going to happen for sure, and I'm very conscious about that. So be very, very unbiased and very patient with your trades, and we'll see what happens at least moving forward. That's the best thing I could really tell you. For Tesla, although it's going to try to retest 425, maybe go a tiny bit higher and consolidate, we're going to see if we get some kind of rug pull or not, if we turn back down. So please be very, very careful, and we'll see what ends up happening, as there could be, once again, a big shift in our volatility. So that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. We're going to see what happens with Tesla, at least moving forward. It might push a little bit, but the overall market and Jerome Powell may affect this. And we're going to see if it launches higher, gets a big rug pull. So let's just wait and see what happens after FOMC. There is a risk of downside because SPY and the QQQ have rising wedges. And if they pan out, that could actually cause a market-wide sell-off. But we'll see just to be safe. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen yet. Although the favorite charts are not 100% guaranteed on a day like this, as FOMC is the next factor. So we'll see what happens. Thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.